This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, this is a meeting on April 5th, 2021. It is 6:30 p.m. It's a meeting of the Planning Board and Zoning Board of Appeals of the Village of Pittsford. We are meeting virtually tonight under orders from Governor Cuomo due to the coronavirus pandemic. The village website does have notice of this meeting and a link that anyone can use to join the meeting to observe our deliberations tonight. With that said, I would like to make a motion to open our regular meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye?
Motion carries.
You get to say aye. Or did I miss you?
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you, yep.
Yeah, aye, there you go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the first thing we have on our agenda is we have 36 Monroe Avenue. I guess before that, we need to get to conflicts of interest disclosure. So does anyone on the board have any conflicts of interest to disclose tonight?
No.
No, I do not.
I do not. And for our new members here, conflicts of interest is primarily a financial interest in the applications on our agenda tonight. Okay, with that said, our first application is for a variance for a porch. So we have two variance applications on our agenda tonight, and for the applicant's benefit, I'll kind of explain our proceedings a little bit. We're going to encourage the applicants to present their proposal to us. We may ask a few questions of the applicants, and then we're going to take a look at the 5 criteria the New York State requires us to consider in regards to these applications, such as whether it will be compatible with community character, whether it's a substantial request, whether it's a self-created hardship, and so on. So we'll have a discussion about that. And then ultimately what the board is looking to decide is whether the benefit to the applicant outweighs any potential adverse impacts on the community. So if the applicants are presenting information tonight, the board really appreciates hearing details of your proposal, what you're doing, and really how it fits in with the community and will not adversely affect other properties. So those are some things that we really appreciate hearing from applicants. So with that said, do we have an applicant for anyone willing to speak on behalf of 36 Monroe Avenue to start things off?
Yep, that's me.
Now, are you the applicant or are you an architect, engineer?
I am the architect on this project. I'm representing Mike Coluccio, who owns the property. So he's looking to construct a porch on the front of the house. Apparently, from information that he's gained from somewhere, the house had a porch originally that was removed in the 50s, a covered porch. It now has a stoop that's in need of repair. So the idea was to remove it, and remove the stoop, concrete stoop, and build a wood porch, much like a porch that's just a couple doors down on a similar house. Just kind of keeping in the character of the type of front porch that would be on this house. Nothing, we're not doing anything, no modern twists or anything, just trying to make it really match like it's always been there. So one of the things with this, or maybe the only thing, is the front setback. It's currently 43.8. And the porch would cause it to be 36.2 feet, which is a 9.5% ask for the front setback variance. Other than that, the materials that will be used are all wood. The criteria in which to construct this in the village is well known by the contractor, and there won't be any phony baloney stuff with materials. The house is currently white, so we'll be kind of matching. Again, we want the porch to ultimately look like it was built with the house. And so I guess with that, I'll listen to any input.
Okay, first of all, just a few clarifications here. I believe you said you're constructing one, the setback is going to be 36 feet, and I believe the zoning code requires a setback of 70 feet.
If I recall a conversation that I had, I guess maybe it was with Steve Loth. I thought this front setback was 40, but I could be wrong. If it's 70, then we are pre-existing non-conforming, and at which point maybe the porch can't be done. I don't know.
Well, I'll just chime in here before others do. Typically, well, first of all, an important fact is this house was built before the zoning code. And so when we see those, we have to recognize that the house is where it is and the code is where it is. And part of our purpose and reason for existence here is to deal with these unique circumstances of all the unique properties we have all the village that were built without long before any zoning code existed. So we've always considered that to be a strong factor. And again, I think whether it adversely impacts the community and whether it's compatible with community character is something that's of paramount interest that we've always looked at in the past. So you're proposing, again, 36 feet, and at least per the legal notice, 70 feet is required in the LDR district that you're in. To keep on these lines, we did adopt a whole new zoning code a year ago, and there was a lot of discussion about changing front setbacks and side setbacks, so essentially every property would comply. And it was determined that if we did that, that would have adverse consequences, and it would allow these larger properties to subdivide their properties and put two houses there, and it would kind of get rid of the large yards and so on. So in our discussions about the zoning code, I think it was ultimately decided to leave the setbacks situated to kind of preserve the character of these larger properties to prevent them from being subdivided. And there is a strong realization that there's a lot of unique properties throughout the village, and traditionally variances have been our process for dealing with that. Mindy, do you want to comment anything along those lines, or on kind of the rationale on these pre-existing properties?
Sure. So, you've got a house that predates the zoning code, as Justin said. And I would imagine that every other house on the lot that's adjacent to it suffers from the same problem that this house does. So when this board evaluates the area variance setback request, one of the things it's going to be looking at is how far setback are the other homes from Monroe? Are they, all about the current setback, which is, just over 43.5 feet? Are they closer to 36 feet? Are they all over the place? And if so, or are they all like 70 feet back, like the code says? So that's something that I think would be helpful to this board in evaluating the application.
Mhm.
I've been there. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure the house is close by. And all the houses in that row, they're all about the same setback. So the one that I took pictures of that should be in the packet that you are looking at, that's from a couple doors down. That's the porch that we kind of mimicked to be in harmony with what's happening or in the immediate surroundings. That appears to be less than the 43, because I think they put the porch on and it's closer to the road with the porch. But if you look, you take a straight line down there, they jog a little bit, but everyone's pretty much 40 feet, which is, I guess, why I thought that 40 feet was the number.
All right, I was pulling up a view of it, and I would certainly agree that this house is a similar setback to some of the other ones next door to it, namely 54 and 50. There's 50, 54, 56.
Right. Justin, if you start at the first residence next to the fire station, I mean, that's probably the shortest setback, and that's the oldest house. The old Bolger house.
Yeah. What is that one? That
Paul,
looks like it's about 48 foot to the sidewalk.
Paul, can I ask a question while?
Sure.
So when I look at your page 24 in the packet, which has the front elevation, and then I look at the photograph of the house, I have a little trouble reconciling those.
The photograph of the actual house?
Yeah.
What do you think is not matching?
Yeah. So if you look at the windows in the attic and above the attic. So I just wanted to note that there, to my eye, is quite a discrepancy between the drawing and the proposed porch and the actual house that we're looking at.
But you mean the one the photo in there that already includes a porch on it?
No, it's the actual house, I believe, isn't it, Paul?
I'm looking right now to see what I sent you.
So there's a white house with a prominent bay window in the front?
Yeah, that's the house.
Yeah,
You're looking at page 27.
Yeah, page 20. So I'm comparing page 24 to page 27.
So I gave you a picture of a white house, black trim with a red door and a bay window.
Right.
27's not the house. That's a different one on the street.
Yeah, the
The
drawing that I'm
blue
looking at that shows the front elevation is the dormer and the attic is the same and the windows are the same. So I think that we're just having a slip in communication or.
So Susan, are you referring to the blue? Oh, you might, if you have a printout, you may not see. But in the bottom left corner, it says Bank of America drive-through. Is that the one you're looking at?
No, I'm looking at page 27.
Oh, okay, she's on the right one.
Yeah.
This is the house.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
yeah, that's the right house. It's
Right.
just at a different angle, so it pinches down.
So
Yeah,
this,
that's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah,
no kidding.
just a lot closer to it, and so you're missing some of the deeper architectural elements. So Mindy's got her hand up. You're close to it.
Yeah, Justin,
Yes,
may I
Mindy?
add something here? So I was just looking at the code, and the building inspector referred us to 210-20.5 under the LDR district. And the front yard setback is 70 feet, but the note says, or the average between developed lots adjacent to the property in question.
Yeah.
So it may be that the zoning code requirement for this property is not 70 feet. It's the average of the setbacks for the properties on either side of it.
Looks to me like they're neighbors. I'm just using I'm looking at the GIS website for Monroe County. Looks like the neighbors are about 38, 39 feet. That's 34. And then the other one, the one next to it at 42 Monroe, is about 62 feet.
Okay, so
That
the
would
average
be
of
if
38,
you average the two, it'd be more like 50.
right. So the requested setback is 36.2 from 50, not 36.2 from 70.
Mhm.
Well, I guess I would, my methods for looking at this have a very high error rate. I'm not able to figure this out to an accuracy of more than 5 or 10 feet. I think that would be up to Steve to determine. Mindy, do you think this needs to be effectively resolved before we vote on this?
I think it would be a good idea to resolve this so that you know what you're dealing with.
So if
Because I mean,
the,
some of your analysis, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Justin, but some of your analysis is going to be influenced by whether you're asking for a 14-foot setback or like a 50% setback, you know?
Even if it is a 50% setback though, if it's reasonably contiguous with other properties on Monroe County, though they may not be adjacent, they may be a little farther up, one could still consider the variance assuming the larger number.
Yeah, you could. You could. And, you know, you can certainly talk about how it appears that the request should be from a smaller number, not from 70, but for perhaps 50-ish.
Yeah.
And that may affect your analysis under item C, which is whether the requested variance is substantial, and D, whether it would have an adverse effect on the physical and environmental conditions in the district.
But I think Dave's point was to A, right? Which is the aesthetic impact. And when you look at 56, 54, 50, and 46 Monroe, all those houses have front porches and all the front porches are, say, within 30 or 40 feet of the road, is the way I look at it. So I would say that Dave's point is to section A, which is the aesthetic impact, which appears in line with most houses with front porches on Monroe Ave on that side of the street.
Right.
I
can
just add
see
one
that.
thing,
Mhm.
whether it matters, I'm not sure, but there currently is a porch, like I said, the stoop. This doesn't have a cover on it, but the porch that's on there is almost 6 feet right now. If we were to leave it or put a cover on it, we would be that 6 feet further or closer to the road. So really, we're asking for about 18 inches closer to the road than what actually exists right now. So I'm counting it from the front of the house because we're knocking the stoop off the house. So I'm giving that number, but reality is the front of the stoop is actually 6 feet closer to the road than that 43'8".
So when you say the current setback is 43.8, you're really saying that
That's what it is to the, I'm sorry.
you're saying it's 49.8 because you've got a 6-foot stoop that's there now.
The existing would be 6 feet less, so the existing setback is 37 foot.
I see. Okay.
37.8. But because we were knocking it down, I just took the numbers from the house. But I guess I should have shown that dotted in so we could be more clear. I could be more clear.
I would move to proceed under the understanding that it's requiring a larger setback rather than a smaller. And should it be less, then so be it. And as a result, we can make decisions as though it required a greater variance. Not variance, but What I'm saying is, so we make the decision as though it's 36 from 70 versus 36 from 38. If the decision's the same, then it doesn't. I guess I don't think it's best to delay the application unless it matters to people's opinions.
So I think, let me think about this from maybe from a different perspective. First of all, the house is where it is. We're not going to ask them to move the house. Can we all agree with that?
Yep.
Okay. Then the next question is a porch an unreasonable and atypical thing in this neighborhood? And I think we can say no, there's lots of porches there. So then I think another question is this porch a reasonable size? So I believe, now what size did you say it is? It's about 7.5 feet deep?
Yes, sir. 7.5 feet deep and 25 feet, 188 square feet.
So I think the key thing is, if we went from 7.5 feet deep, if we made that significantly smaller, it does not seem like it'd be a very functional porch to me. And so this looks like something, you're not trying to make a 30-foot deep porch on a house that's really close to the street. It looks like you're trying to put on an appropriate and reasonable sized porch on a house that happens to be situated where it's situated.
Yep, they did want it to be deep enough for some chairs, and I thought less than that, we start getting in trouble. But more than that, we start getting over 200, which I think there was a cap on the size of the porch could be 200. So we were trying to, find a number that worked for everything.
Okay, so for Mindy's comments, the size of the variance can be important in our considerations, but even if we find it's a large variance, we can still approve it anyway. So if we do the numerical analysis, but again, we have to look at the benefits to you, and clearly, if you had a smaller porch, it would not be of much benefit to the applicant because it wouldn't be functional.
True.
And also, if it was substantially smaller, I don't know if it would have a substantially reduced impact on the neighborhood either.
I agree.
So it's only 1.5 feet further out toward Monroe than the stoop.
Yeah.
So basically, there was an existing porch there before, and they're only proceeding 1.5 feet further from the stoop.
Right.
Maybe we could factor that into our numeric analysis.
I am for that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other initial thoughts from everybody, or we can just go and start taking a look at our review criteria?
I want to say something on behalf of porches. As you pointed out in the workshop, Pittsford is, slowly cultivating a porch culture to be shared with the community. So for that reason, I think it's great. And also I think it's great to restore something to this house that was there originally. Interestingly, the same house is across the street from me, and they took their porch off. So Paul, would you mind dropping by the design?
I'll slip it in their mailbox.
Yeah, right. But so anyway, I just wanted to say something on behalf of porches. It's a front porch is a very American thing, and I think it's totally fitting with the rest of the village.
Yep. I would second those thoughts for the record.
That was a good point you made, Susan, about we're in a historic district and they're restoring a historic feature that used to be present, which is something that's very admirable. Okay. Wondering if anyone wants to volunteer to pull up our resolution and we can at least browse through it and talk about the review criteria. I did some in the workshop, so I'll volunteer Marina or somebody else to possibly pull that up. We have any volunteers?
I can do that, sure. Give me one moment.
Justin, I have a question just about process. I know we've talked a little bit about resolutions and whether or not, as a result of being on Zoom, it's easier for us to do them on the fly and actually do the wordsmithing now. Have we decided to go through the criteria verbally with the idea of having Marina work on the resolution after and then receive approval from us and any wordsmithing after the fact? Or how have you decided to do this one today?
I think that we could just go take a look at this and make verbal comments. And I think what we had discussed last time is let our secretary try to capture them in the document rather than to edit the document on the fly, which is more time consuming.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Is everyone in agreement with that?
Yes.
So the first few things are, I'm not sure what to do because this was noticed as a 70-foot setback is required and 36 feet is present. That was the determination of the building inspector. And based on our attorney's comments, the setback may not actually be 70 feet, but may be the average of the two neighboring properties. So that's that first whereas paragraph.
Right.
Mindy, do you have any suggestions as to what we do about this? This was the determination of the building inspector. They may be incorrect.
Yeah, I think his determination is incorrect, but since the determination would result in you giving a larger variance than, numerically than what the code would require it, I think that the notice is okay because it erred on the side of caution.
Okay.
So, for example, if the notice said that there was a 10-foot setback. Oh, I'm rethinking that.
No, I think your thought was right on that, because if the average, let's say, was 45,
Right.
then it looks like I'm asking for a small variance, 10
Right.
feet or
Right.
so.
And here it
But
looks like you're asking for a big variance. Thank you.
It looks like I'm asking for 50%, and
Yeah.
that would be.
I'm a little challenged in the math department. So I appreciate the help there.
Mindy, that's what I was trying to say, but failed to in like about 10 sentences earlier. So it's the idea, if we go forward with this under the 70-foot variance requirement, then if anything, it's less, not more. And the outcome of this, should this not be a determining factor by itself, which it wouldn't be,
Right.
then we could proceed as it's written.
Right.
Okay.
Why don't we just strike where 70 feet is required? We're asking for a 36-foot setback, and where 70 feet is required, you could strike that. And I think we're on the record debating between whether it's roughly 50 to 70, and that's probably not of significance. I guess the whole point is not to have on the document 70-foot 36, that being a pretty large percentage.
Mhm.
Well, I don't
That's
know.
what was noticed, though.
It was what was noticed. And it was also the building inspector's determination. We don't have an appeal of that, and it may be wrong, but he's not here to revise his determination, unfortunately.
We can make comment to it in the findings as well as to the location of the property in terms of when it was built relative to the zoning code and that sort of stuff.
I think we can leave it in there and move along personally.
I'm comfortable with that too.
Okay, so a couple things for Mindy. Seeker, this is a type 2 action because it's a residential area variance. Number 17 was the citation there.
That hasn't changed.
All of these changed from 2 years ago, but I think I looked that up earlier. I think that's correct. Again, it's an area variance for a single-family home, which exempts it from Monroe County planning. And it's not subject to a waterfront review because it's a seeker type 2. So if there's no objections to any of that, we can take a look at our review criteria. The first one, whether this will create an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties. Any thoughts?
Well, it will not, in my opinion, create an undesirable change. In fact, it will add to historical consistency.
We also noted that other houses on the street have a porch. And this house used to have a porch. And it's restoring a lost architectural feature.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I think using the word restore somewhere in there, historical character, makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Right. Contextual with the rest of the neighborhood.
Right. Contiguous properties, maybe not adjacent, but certainly contiguous, are similar in design and setback following porch addition.
Yeah, what was your comment, Susan, on porch culture?
Well, as noted in the, was that the Rand Place findings? That
Yeah.
the village enjoys an active community porch culture, which this would just be an addition to.
We could put that under D.
Okay, or we can copy A and stick it in D. All right, we found under A, it will not create an unnecessary impact on the community. What if we go up to B? So can they achieve this by some other method? Last time we said you can't build a porch without building a porch, I think.
And any noticeably smaller square footage would provide significantly less utility as a result of the limitations of furniture and seating arrangements if you scale it down too much. So I think it's at the right size for the property for sure.
Okay, so it cannot be achieved by another method. The size is reasonably needed for utility, and a substantial reduction won't work. Okay, the next question is whether it's substantial, and I guess that goes back to that numeric analysis. If 70 foot is a required setback and 36 feet is required, that is substantial. Mindy, what is it usually, about 20–30% it starts becoming considered substantial?
Yeah, but I think that you can go about this one a little differently and talk about how the structure is a pre-existing non-conforming structure that was built closer to the street than the current zoning code allows, and the requested variance would only increase the non-conformity by 1.5 feet.
Right.
Okay, so no, if the house is pre-existing non-conforming, if the house was originally built with a porch,
Right.
and we're only moving the porch 1.5 feet closer to the street, So you're saying that moving it 1.5 feet forward greatly improves utility while not being a substantial change.
I would just say that it's not a substantial change because it's only 1.5 feet closer.
Mhm.
Okay.
In A, did we talk about how other houses on that street are also closer to the street than is permitted by the zoning code and appear to have porches that have similar setbacks to the one that's being requested here? Can you make that finding? Or
That sounds like
something
a
like
good
it?
addition.
Yeah.
And it also makes sense to note that the depth of the porch is reasonably consistent with other porches on the street, and they're not
Right.
making one that's substantially larger.
Right.
I don't know the exact dimensions of the one on the street, but I've seen nothing about this application that looks atypical.
Right.
Instead of saying, Marina, that it has the other houses have a consistent setback, I would say that that this would be within the range of other setbacks, of other non-conforming setbacks. Along that
Let's mute Marina while she's typing.
Sorry. I'll make sure when we go back, if we settle on some language, when I go back in the recording, I'll make sure that gets in there. So
Okay, thank you, Marina.
okay. Where are we now? D?
Yeah, oftentimes we say copy A, but does anyone want to add anything or change anything?
Well, I mean, do we want to say something like it's not going to cause, alter drainage or runoff, something like that, the addition of this porch? That it's well within the lot size, so it won't, have an adverse effect?
I'm not
On-
sure you have any, oh, I'm sorry, Susan, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's it.
I'm
can-
not sure you have anything in the record at this point that would support that finding.
Yeah,
So I think the drainage situation would be up to the building inspector to review for a building permit. It's not subject to site plan review because it's not big enough. So I think that's for him to work out. One environmental thing is historic preservation is an environmental character. So I think it's certainly saying restoring a historic feature on a historic house is definitely a beneficial environmental change. So I think under D there, it will not have an adverse impact is what we're at. Is everyone in agreement with that?
Yes.
Yes.
And then E, our typical language for that is, yes, it's a self-created hardship, but that alone does not preclude granting a variance.
Mhm.
Again, they don't have to comply with all of these things. So Marina, it is self-created.
Well, the desire for a covered porch is self-created, but the fact that the structure is a pre-existing non-conforming structure is not self-created.
I would even go so far as to argue that prior to the zoning code, a porch existed and
Right.
somebody tore it down. So it was
Right.
not self-created, and they're just looking to restore it to its prior condition. You could, I think you could argue that. Doesn't matter, in my view, either way, which way we go.
Okay. And number F, whether this is the minimum necessary for relief. Comments we had already was making it smaller would make it not functional, and making it smaller would also not significantly reduce the impact of what's being done. Or at least that's my seeing of it.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I would say it is the minimum necessary.
So I agree, it is the minimum necessary. Is there general agreement with that?
Yes.
Yep.
Anything else we want to state about this? I think stating the building was built before the zoning code is useful. Stating a port, this is under G. This is G, Marina, the next one. Or so the building, or the house was built before the zoning code. It used to have a porch. Any other thoughts?
Location of the property is reasonably consistent with other contiguous properties on Monroe Avenue.
Okay.
You might even say with porches, other contiguous properties with porches on Monroe Avenue.
I'm not even sure if it's important that it's continuous, but they're reasonably close. So, you know, within 5 or 7 houses on the street.
Yep.
Okay, I don't see the need for anything else on H. I think we just delete that. Any other thoughts? Mindy, do you have any recommended conditions? So, HDB approval?
We could add it, but I mean, it's a condition whether we make it a condition or not.
Right.
I can't think of any conditions myself.
Don't we have to put a time limit somewhere?
We do that sometimes to where if they don't construct it within X period, get a building permit within X period of time, the variance expires.
Or does that just go along with a building permit, not this?
Well, if we don't put any conditions and they don't build it, someone could try to build it 50 years from now if they wanted to.
I'm fine with that.
In this case, I might actually be fine with that too. They're putting on a porch that's kind of a historic restoration, and I can't imagine anything changing at 50 years from now that would make me change that opinion.
It'll be the only house with a porch in the village. Everybody tears them down except for them.
Rocking chairs get smaller.
Right, people get smaller.
Any other comments or discussion from the board? So what I've heard is the agreement is no conditions are needed. And for the new members, if we put any conditions in there, they generally have to be pertinent to the property, something physical about the property. All right, so no conditions. I'll just make a motion to approve the variance presented and adopt this resolution.
I'll second.
All right,
I'm sorry.
Marina, you want to call a roll call vote?
That was me, Marina.
Okay. All right, Member Loda,
Aye.
Member Shannon,
Aye.
Member Marshall,
Aye.
Member Katura,
Aye.
and Chairperson Valistra.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. So Paul, you are all off the hook now. But you're welcome to stick around if you want to hear us debate at length the next application.
Thank you guys very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
You too.
All right, the next application, I gotta get ranked here and get my agenda back up. The next application is for a variance for 1 South Main, which is a sign variance for chandeliers. Do we have an applicant here for that?
We tried to get a hold of her today. She only provided a phone number with no email, and no one answered over there. So I do not believe that they are attending.
Okay. Mindy, under the circumstance, what do you recommend we do?
Well, they haven't withdrawn the application. And they were advised that it's being noticed for tonight.
They were. I can't recall. I made a few calls today, so their voicemail might not have been working. I can't remember if they were
But
the
is
ones.
there-
But
Is there a letter or an email or something to them letting them know that this application was being heard at a special meeting and not next week's meeting?
just the usual notice, just the usual attempts that we make, which is via email, via phone call. It's noticed on the website. I believe when we send the mail notices to the neighbors, they end up being included in that as well. So they've been,
Do we have a copy of an email that was sent to them letting them know we're going to do this at a special meeting?
we don't have an email address for them. That was the main issue. There wasn't one on the application. Steve didn't have one. So we tried reaching out by phone, and that was all we could really do in the office.
I'd put it over to next week then and try to, continue to get in touch with them.
Okay.
Mindy, should we discuss this amongst ourselves at all, or should we really wait for the applicant to have an opportunity to hear it and present it?
I'd wait for the applicant. I mean, if they didn't get actual notice that we were going to be addressing their application today. Is there anybody else here that wants to speak on this application?
I guess we forgot on our last application to ask for public input as well.
Yeah.
we can
Marina,
ask
do
now.
we have any public comments regarding the porch application?
We do not. Nothing in the comments.
And I seem to recall we had no one actually attending our meeting either, other than board members at the time and the applicant.
Yes, it looks like it is just us here, and I would think that MEC might be Mr. Colicchio. But I have no way of knowing.
Is that Peggy Brzee?
Yeah, I think that's Peggy.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Boy, this is kind of sad if we start knowing the handful of people that attend meetings just by their initials.
Well, why don't we close the loop on that and ask right now whether there's anybody who is in attendance who would like to comment on the porch at 36 Monroe Ave.
Sure, I think that makes sense. Should we open the public hearing? And
Sure.
all right, we'll start by making a motion to open the public hearing on 36 Monroe Avenue.
Second,
Okay, do we need a roll call vote, Marina?
I think so. So Member Marshall,
Aye.
Member Loda,
aye.
Member Shannon. Aye. Member Kachura,
Aye.
and Chairperson Belistra.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay, is there any public comments on 36 Monroe Avenue porch? Anyone willing to speak? Okay, no one willing to speak, so I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, how do you vote? Oh, Marina?
Member Marshall,
Aye.
Member Loda,
Aye.
Member Shannon. Aye. Member Kachura,
Aye.
and Chairperson Belistra.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay, I see no reason to change our prior vote on the variance.
So may I suggest that you make a motion to ratify your prior vote in light of the lack of public comment?
Okay, let's make a motion to ratify our prior vote, given that we had no additional comments.
Second,
Oh, very good.
Okay, Member Shannon. Aye. Member Loda,
aye.
Member Marshall,
Aye.
Member Kachura,
Aye.
and Chairperson Belistra.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. And then chandeliers, do we have to vote to table it?
Well, if we don't, then you have to send out notices to everybody again. So I think we have to announce the date at which we're going to hear it. And since you can't contact the applicant, I would suggest we just defer it to our next regular meeting, which is, I believe, April 19th.
There's an email for them on page 6.
Oh, you found
chandeliersbtq@gmail.com, page 6 of the packet.
Okay, I will try to
Here,
get in contact with them there. Do you guys want to adjourn for a few minutes? I can try to email them now and see if they happen to check.
I don't think it matters. They're not here. They had an opportunity to be here. So if they can't do the 19th and then that meeting comes along, they can tell us another date they can do, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to continue discussion of this application for 1 South Main Street at our next meeting on April 19th.
Second.
Okay, Member Shannon,
Aye.
Member Loda,
Aye.
Member Marshall,
Aye.
Member Katura,
Aye.
and Chairperson Valistra.
All right.
Okay, motion carries.
The only one thing I forgot to add is we had a comment from county planning about the State Historic Preservation Office. Mindy, do you have any comments for us as to what we should do with that?
I don't remember what the comment was.
Contact SHPO, wasn't it?
That was essentially the comment. Their comment was the site is located at Pittsford Village Historic District. The Pittsford Village Historic District is designated as a National Historic Site. Care should be exercised to ensure that this local historic resource is not adversely impacted by this proposal. Contact the State Historic Preservation Office.
Yeah, I'd say you've got a local historic preservation office that you can contact. I don't think that county planning should be sending you to SHPO.
That was kind of my thought too. And I thought if they wanted SHPO's input, county planning could contact them
They
too.
could ask themselves, right?
What was it specifically in relation to? Because
Was the
they're-
sign?
the sign? Okay, because they're redoing on the silo on the grain tower. They're redoing the T-Mobile communication antennas. And they contacted Historic Pittsford for comments because it's a historic area. And they said that the lead agency was SHPO. So I'm wondering if that's what this is.
That's a
No.
different project.
It's a different project and different approvals are needed. I think cell towers, go under a different statute.
I seem to recall like 2 years ago, we had comments from them and it came to our meeting agenda as to whether we had any comments on that. And I think we voted as a board to just say the planning board has no comments on this action, but it may be subject to review by the planning board. It sounds like if they're constructing it, they decided not to apply for a special use permit or site plan review.
I think the antennas are already there. They're just putting new ones up, bigger, maybe a little bit bigger.
Anyway, we don't have the pending action on that, and so no application, so there's nothing for us to do.
No, okay.
Could I
If
ask,
you want to talk to Steve about it, you can talk to Steve about it.
is it reasonable to ask a question about the sign variance that has been requested and if it's the correct variance that has been requested?
I mean, I think it's reasonable to ask questions about the application, but Mindy's recommendation is maybe to not talk about it at all, or at least not deliberate on the merits of it.
I have no deliberation other than asking if the correct variance has been requested or indicated. So to the extent that we may think about this in advance of the discussion with the applicant, it meant, I don't know, maybe, is it okay to ask that question?
Yeah, I think we can talk about that. I mean, we would typically talk about that in the workshop.
Yeah, I forgot to mention it in the workshop. I mean, we can defer until the next workshop.
Let's wait till next time.
Okay.
And if you want to follow up with Steve on your own, you're welcome to do that, because it's his interpretation that we're going off of.
Okay.
Right, I think I see what the issue might be, because the section of the code says that they get one sign located on the same elevation as the entrance, which can be no greater than 30 square feet.
Right.
And if the structure had 2 stories, the second story sign could be no more than 8 square feet.
So the building inspector said this is a secondary building facade and found it was an 8 square foot limit to the sign. I have not read the code recently. I do not like reading and interpreting sign code.
Okay. I will defer then till next week and we can,
Mhm.
Well, like I said, I think it's great. You want to send an email to the building inspector and ask him if this makes sense? Do it.
Justin, did you look up if there was any record of Embrassez-moi doing the same thing? They've got a sign on Monroe Avenue as well as Main Street.
Yeah, building inspector was out last week. I did talk to him today. And I had asked him if he had any, I asked him a long time ago if he had any specifics on these other properties. He said Embrassez-moi has 2 signs of about the same size each on 2 different facades. He also said the Soho Salon, which is next door to Embrassez-moi, they did get a variance for an oversized sign. He didn't have the exact date on that, and I don't know the circumstances of that. I don't know if they have 1 oversized sign or if they have 2. But what he said about the Embrassez-moi signs is that goes way back. So before Embrassez-moi was there was a drugstore there or
Pharmacy, yeah.
pharmacy. And that one also had signs of similar size. So it's unclear as to whether that was those sign sizes were the pre-existing thing, and maybe
Right.
someone overlooked it when the new Embrassez-moi moved in. I don't know what the circumstances are for that. Steve did not find any records of a variance for that building.
Okay.
Do we want to follow up with? I've asked him to try to track down what was going on with those 2. If he has more time to research it, he may come up with more information. Does anyone have any other buildings that they think are relevant that they want to get some history on?
Chase Bank.
Chase Bank, I know I looked at the history of that, and they have these freestanding signs that have been there since '72, and they got a variance for those maybe 10 years ago. And the variance was basically said there is a pre-existing sign there of the same size, and they're going to a smaller size sign, so they allowed that to continue. This
So
is
they're
my
allowed
memory of it. If you want me to track it, we'll add that to the record to track down.
It was a two signs of significance on 2 facades. That was of interest to me.
Okay, so we'll ask the building inspector for history on signs for Chase Bank, Embrassez-moi, and Soho Salon.
And does anybody recall if that was ever denied for ESL?
ESL Bank,
Did they ever have a sign request for the, what would be the perpendicular facade to State Street?
I have no idea.
Okay, they may not have.
Was there not a sign where they're proposing to put a sign now? It looks like there's 2 lights that were already stuck to the side of the building where it should be shining on a sign, but there is no sign.
Probably said Pittsford Department Store.
Yeah, well, there's a couple questions regarding that. One is, I believe this used to be 2 separate stores and shops.
Yes, combined.
And I believe they've been combined.
Yeah.
And so it may have been legal to have a larger sign over it before they were combined. Maybe Mindy can ponder that. But it's also perfectly legal, according to the building inspector, for them to put a smaller sign over that entrance. And so having a sign there, I don't know if that's really the issue, but the size of the sign that goes there is the issue.
Yep.
It looks like they're reusing a sign from a store they closed.
I think that's the deal.
Okay.
And I think the code also allows for them to put signs in windows and some other places. So they have a few options for more than one sign.
So the building inspector, according to the code, is considering this to be a, now where was it? For each other elevation facing a public street or walkway. So that's where it's the 8-foot square or 8 square feet limitation. Okay.
So that'll leave your concerns, Dave?
I suppose my understanding of the term elevation is different, but I suspect it's okay. I was reading that as like 2 stories, not 2 facades.
I think an elevation usually refers to a facade. You have a north, south, east, and west.
Right.
Okay, yeah, that's just a, thank you. As we've talked through this, my understanding has changed to the definition of that term.
When interpreting sign code, it is very helpful to refer to the definitions in the sign code section.
Mhm.
Okay, Mindy, did we stray very far off course with any of those discussions?
You're muted.
Muted,
You're still muted.
Oh,
No, you're
you-
gone.
oh,
Was it something we said?
well, do we want to do the next bit on the agenda?
I think that let's move on to the next agenda item, which was the meeting schedule.
Yeah, we had touched on it briefly in our last meeting, but then we got into all the procedural talk, so we didn't actually get that motion. So we just need a motion to adopt that 2021 revised meeting schedule.
All right, yeah, we all agreed that was reasonable, and the basic change is the application deadline will now be 5 weeks before the meeting, so that there's more time to administratively review it before we have to publish the public hearing notices about 3 weeks before the hearing. And also county planning needs 4 weeks to review it as well. So we have multiple things that take 3 to 4 weeks to happen. So a 5-week meeting deadline makes sense. So with that, I'll make a motion to adopt the meeting schedule as presented in our meeting packet for tonight.
Second.
Okay, Member Loda,
Aye.
Member Shannon,
Aye.
Member Marshall,
Aye.
Member Katura,
Aye.
Chairperson Belistra.
Aye.
Motion carries. And Mindy, you were back. All we did was adopt the revised 2021 calendar. So if you had comments on the previous bit, we'll circle back to you.
I was just going to respond to the question Justin posed before I accidentally exited the meeting. You did not cross any lines. You didn't discuss the substance of the sign application, so you're okay there.
Thank you. The last thing I had, and I might even have one other thing, but it was a Town of Pittsford zoning code update. I want to ask people what we want to do with this. There is a public comment period that the Town of Pittsford has open, soliciting comments until I believe April 25th. And it's on their website. They're undergoing a substantial zoning code change, and they've hired Steinmetz to do that. And they had a meeting I attended last month at which they did not open anything up to public comment, but they took a few questions from the public. So they decided that they instead want people to click on an online map on the town website and submit comments. So what I want to ask is, do we want to submit any comments to the town of Pittsford? Right now, they're in the information gathering stage. They don't have any actual proposals drafted, to my knowledge, as for what they're going to change in code. But it seems like this is going to be a rather large change, and it's intended to respond to the revised comprehensive plan.
I think it would be hard in our capacity to present a shared statement to the town as to the views of our board, that in that we're not, I just think that would be hard. Not that I don't agree with asking if we can. I just don't know if we have that capacity, or granted.
Well, we can send them comments and they can certainly ignore them.
Is that something, Mindy, that we can do as a board, like prepare shared statements to when the town asks us?
You can publicly comment on the proposed legislation, but you don't have any power to review, undertake, propose, deny grants, anything having to do with their own rezoning. So,
okay. But we can make
So it wouldn't matter if we commented individually as opposed to the board, planning board.
it could conceivably have more weight if the board had a joint comment, to the extent that the comment affected interests that were germane to both the village and the town.
Yep.
Two things that kind of jumped out at me that I was interested in commenting on. You others could comment on it, but first of all, we all love our traffic here in the village, or not. And so the density of development allowed along the Monroe Avenue corridor is a very prime thing for consideration. And perhaps they should be, since the village has so much traffic, we're really stifled in our potential opportunities because of the large amount of traffic along Monroe Avenue that's largely driven by the plazas in the town. So I don't know if they would consider this very highly, but they may want to, a comment that might be useful is to consider moderating the permitted uses so they're less intense and generate less traffic.
I think that's a great wishful comment.
I also think it's one likely to be ignored.
Yeah. But traffic, and maybe if we looked at the ATP and the comprehensive plan and their comprehensive plan to look for, you know, an argument.
We've never talked about this, but I've looked at it before, but they have a Monroe Avenue corridor plan that was completely ignored. It called for Monroe Avenue to be a tree-lined corridor as a boulevard with a tree-lined median down the street, kind of like Oxford Boulevard and Park Ave area. That was the vision for it. They instead widened the road, and the DOT ignored that vision, and the zoning didn't get it. They wanted it to be a walkable boulevard. Again, kind of like Oxford Street in the Park Ave area. Didn't happen. So that said, the only other thing that kind of jumped out at me that I think is, again, an environmental thing that I noticed about Pittsford is we have these major roads that we all drive down, and if we drive down Jefferson Road, there's loads of trees along there between here and Bushnell's Basin, and even the other direction as we go towards Henrietta. And that's a stark contrast with what you see in Henrietta. And increasing setbacks and preserving these tree-lined streets, I think, is really important. Again, I'm just bringing up things I'm thinking about that are kind of larger environmental issues and character issues that I think are worth considering looking at in the zoning code.
I think that's a great idea. How do you want to go about it though, Justin?
I haven't the foggiest idea, and I don't know if they're going to, last time I submitted comments to the town regarding the HEP, they didn't even read them. Do you want to discuss this at our next meeting? Given our limited, I could try contacting the town to see if they'd give us some more time to submit some comments, because we can't exactly get together frequently and it's kind of a slow process for us to generate any comments.
So,
I understand that the map is available till April 25th, but they're accepting comments after that. So the cutoff date isn't necessarily April 25th.
so the
If
only
that
way to comment is online? Is that right?
Right now, yes, you got to click on a property and type a comment in there. They didn't open it up for general comments at their public information session that they had last month.
So the link, I don't know if anybody didn't see it. I put a link in the chat. We could, right, go through select parcels on this map and wordsmith it and have it be signed, all of us, I think. Or would we have to do it separately in like a letter or written format or email format?
You could do that. The other thing they mentioned is they're going to talk to stakeholders. The consultants were. I think the village planning board could be considered a stakeholder. The village trustees could be a separate stakeholder, and maybe we should just write the town a letter that the village planning board would appreciate the opportunity to comment on some matters.
I think that'd be good.
Yeah, I like that idea.
So do we want to invite any representatives of the town to a meeting to talk to us about this at all? Or I think it would make sense as a special meeting.
Oh, wow. I wouldn't, a special meeting's probably better than a normal meeting.
Okay, so I'll note for now that we would appreciate correspondence with the town. Maybe I will send a letter to the town clerk indicating that we discussed this at our meeting, and stakeholder interviews are being conducted, and the village planning board would appreciate an opportunity for a discussion with the town regarding their future zoning changes.
Yeah.
Marina, do you want to draft an official looking letter to that effect?
I absolutely can.
Everyone on board with that?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll send around the draft of the letter to all the board members. Thank you. The only other thing I saw was there's something going on in US Congress about designating the Finger Lakes region as like some national heritage environmental something or other. I don't know anything about it or what it's going on. I saw some mention of this in a training session. I have no idea what this means, but US Congress is soliciting comments until something like June of this year or something like that. I have no idea what the nature of this is or what might be appropriate to send, but if we can get federal funding to help make better tourism connections, sounds like an opportunity to me. But maybe that's for bigger fish than us. I'm just mentioning that's out there. I can see if I can follow up more to find out what's going on with that.
Mhm.
Okay, I think that wraps up our agenda for tonight. Does anyone have any other discussion points?
It was very last minute, but I sent around the minutes from the last meeting. If you haven't had a chance to look over them, we can definitely, I'll put it on the agenda for next meeting, but I don't know if you guys want, if you had a chance to take a look, we could approve them tonight.
Nope, they're not on the, let's do them next month meeting. They're not on our agenda. So that's fine. I certainly
Alrighty.
haven't looked at them.
Okay, then we just need a motion to close.
Anyone else have anything? Okay, well, thank you for our new members for attending again and joining in the discussion. We have long discussions about just about everything. With that, I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Okay, how do you vote?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Yes.
Good night.
Yeah.